All right, we're going to do a bit of a truncated briefing because I know our colleagues from the Oceans Conference are waiting to brief in a few minutes. As you will hear more from the conference spokesman, Damien Cardona, the conference got underway today with a traditional Fijian ceremony in the General Assembly. In his remarks, the Secretary General said the relationship we have with oceans is under threat like never before due to pollution, overfishing, the effects of climate change, stresses that countries must put aside short-term national gains to prevent long-term global catastrophe. You will hear more on the conference from Damien. The Secretary General's remarks are up online. I do have a statement to read out on the occasion of the anniversary of the 1967 Arab-Israeli War and the 50 years of Israeli occupation in the Palestinian territory. Today marks 50 years since the start of the 1967 Arab-Israeli War, which resulted in Israel's occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, and the Syrian Golan, and the displacements of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and Syrians. This occupation has imposed a heavy humanitarian and development burden on the Palestinian people. Among them are generation after generation of Palestinians who have been compelled to grow up and live in ever more crowded refugee camps, many in abject poverty, and with little or no prospect of a better life for their children. The occupation has shaped the lives of both Palestinians and Israelis. It has fueled recurring cycles of violence and retribution. Its perpetuation is sending an unmistakable message to generations of Palestinians that their dreams of statehood is destined to remain that, just a dream, and to Israelis that their desire for peace, security, and regional recognition remains unattainable. Ending the occupation that began in 1967 and achieving a negotiated two-state outcome is the only way to lay the foundation for enduring peace which meets Israeli security needs and Palestinians' aspirations for statehood and sovereignty. It is the only way to achieve the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Now is not the time to give up on this goal. Continued settlement construction and expansion, violence and incitement, and the illicit arms buildup and militant activity in Gaza risks creating a one-state reality that is incompatible with realizing the legitimate national and historical aspirations of both people. Now is the time to return to direct negotiations to resolve all final status issues on the basis of relevant UN resolutions, agreements, and international law. Now is the time to end the conflict by establishing an independent Palestinian state, living side by side in peace and security with the State of Israel. Resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict will remove a driver of violent extremism and terrorism in the Middle East and open the doors to cooperation, security, prosperity, and human rights for all. In 1947, on the basis of UN General Assembly Resolution 181, the world recognized that the two-state solution and called for the emergence of an independent Arab and Jewish states. On May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was born. Almost 7 decades later, the world still awaits the birth of an independent Palestinian state. The Secretary General reiterates his offer to work with all relevant stakeholders to support a genuine peace process. And I have a statement also from Secretary General on the death of Dr. Babatunde, the Executive Director of the UN Population Fund. The Secretary General said he was profoundly saddened by the sudden passing of his good colleague and friend. He offers sincere condolences to his families and to the staff of UNFPA, to the government and people of Nigeria, and to all those around him, around the world touched by this loss. In his statement, the Secretary General said the world has lost a great champion of health and well-being for all. Dr. Babatunde was admired globally for his leadership of the UN Population Fund and for his forceful advocacy for the world's women and girls in particular. Sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights are among the most important and often most sensitive on the international agenda. His calm yet ardent efforts to help families get the sexual and reproductive health services they need and help the world advance the landmark 1994 Cairo Program of Action on Population Development. Our colleagues at UNFPA also issued a statement saying the death was a devastating loss for them. UNFPA is dedicating to continuing his grand vision for women and young people, and will continue to stand up for the human rights and dignity of everyone, particularly the most vulnerable adolescent girls. And today is World Environment Day. The theme of this year is connecting people to nature, and highlights the vast benefits that clean environments provide to humanity, food and security, improved health and climatic stability. The theme also encourages people to simply get back outdoors. And after we're done here, we have the press conference at 12:30, as I told you about. That at 1 o'clock, the President of the General Assembly, Peter Thompson, Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, Wu Hongbo, and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, and the Deputy Prime Minister of Sweden will speak to you at the General Assembly stakeout. And at 2:30, there'll be a press briefing on the launch of the first global integrated marine assessment. Speakers will include the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, and the President of the General Assembly, and I think that's happening here in this room. And at 3:30, there'll be a press briefing on the global marine protected area target with Christina Pasca-Palmer, the Executive Secretary on the Convention of Biological Diversity, and Her Excellency Carolina Skog, the Environment Minister of Sweden. We have a bunch of more items, but we'll put them on the web. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Stéphane. Late last night, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Bahrain, UAE, as well as Libya, Yemen, Mauritius, and the Maldives cut all diplomatic relations with the state of Qatar. In addition, that they have requested all Qatari citizens on their territory to leave their territory within 14 days, blocking airspace, water, land borders. What is the Secretary General action with this? Did he talk namely to the Emir of Qatar and the King Salman of Saudi Arabia? And what will be the situation, the humanitarian situation, for this small country, since they have blocked to all access?
We're aware of the situation. We're watching it closely. I have no contacts to report at this point between the Secretary General and local leaders. And at this point, we're not going to comment any further on the situation, but we'll continue to watch. Abdelhamid.
Yeah. On the development at the GCC, and ask if Qatar had been historically accused of any incident or act of sponsoring terrorism. On the UN record, had it been accused
as I told you earlier on other issues, the UN record is an open book. There have been lots of debates on lots of issues, but it's not for me to speculate on the motivation behind what happened.
The second question about the statement on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the 67 war, I commend the Secretary General for his statement, but what is next? I mean, how could he take an initiative to make this dream of Palestinian, which has not been attained so far, to make it attainable, to make it reality?
I think as the Secretary General said, and his envoys have said on numerous occasions, it is really the solution is for the parties themselves to return to direct negotiations, and we will continue to do whatever we can to encourage that. Mr. Lee.
Some other things, but I wanted to ask you about what Espen Barth Ida said. It sounds like he's working quite a lot in terms of when actually employed. Right. So I wanted to know, how does it work? For example, my understanding is that the Yemen envoy, Ismail Sheikh Ahmed, has had a number of month-long vacations, may end up working fewer days than Mr. Espen Barth Ida. How is it determined by the UN? I'm being serious.
No, I know you're being serious. I don't think either of us have the breakdown of any staff, whether an envoy or somebody just starting out, is entitled to a certain amount of leave, and it's their right to take it or not to take it. So that's point one. Mr. Ide was hired on a when actually employed basis. Obviously, I think as we've seen, especially in these last months, there's been in deep intensification of the discussions, and he's working the amount of days he's telling you he's working.
Right. But my question is, I'm asking because there are differences. For example, when actually employed, don't have to file conflict of interest forms. It's not directed to him. I'm saying for the UN to decide For example, Michel Kafando, will you say how many days he's working? And I'm saying again because
I think it'll be
public
clear.
fund,
It'll
it
be
shouldn't
clear.
require him coming here.
It'll be clear when Mr. Kafando will work, and the Secretary General expects all his envoys to live up to the highest ethical standards.
Do you have anything on Morocco and risk?
No, I do not. Go ahead.
Hi, Simon Tate from Al Jazeera. Is the Secretary General actually active in diplomatic moves with the other GCC countries to try to resolve this?
No, not that I'm aware of. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Last week I asked Farhan about the number of people or the population which is living in Tindouf. That was following a statement by him on the situation in these camps in Algeria, and he referred me to the WFP website, but I went there and the numbers actually don't add up. They're mentioning 90,000 rations, and they're asking for an urgent need of $7.1 million. So my question is, how do the WFP know how many people they are feeding in these camps, while there was no census of the people living there?
Well, I think there's a difference between official census. That's one thing, and obviously WFP is on the ground, and they're aware of the number of people they need to feed. And as I think as the Secretary General made clear in the statement, the rations and the resources available to the people, to WFP in order to feed people, to give them the basic food that people need or are entitled to, is running very low.
Yeah, but on what basis did they come up with the number $7.9
I think
million?
I mean, you can follow up directly with them. They're obviously on the ground, aware of the number of people they need to feed. Evelyn.
I was watching the Ocean Conference this morning and watching President Mugabe of Zimbabwe. And I'm wondering if you can check why UN TV made a decision not to show him leaving the podium, because that's common. And we know his health is a question. Could you check? Could he ask for it?
I'm not aware, but we'll check
whether that was self-censorship or his request.
Abdelhamid.
Yesterday, a young girl called Nawal Erekat from the village of Abu Dis, east of Jerusalem. She had a mild heart attack. Emergency vehicle came and took her to the hospital 3 miles away. She was stopped at the checkpoint for 90 minutes, and the driver was begging the Israeli checkpoint to let the vehicle pass, yet he refused, and she died at the checkpoint. Would you kindly convey this to or if Mladinov knows about this incident?
I'll check with them. Okay.
Please. Thank you.
Yes, one more.
Yeah, back to this situation in Tindouf. So, given that the lack of census in this region is one of the main factors why there has been embezzlement of humanitarian aid for the last four decades, and that was documented by WFP, OLAF, and by UNHCR. So, can you update us on the SG's effort to satisfy this request by the Security Council to register the people of Tindouf?
I think these issues are issues that need to be dealt with in the long term. The point of the Secretary General's message was a humanitarian one, that people who need to be fed should be fed. Thank you.